Hello YouTube, it's Jacob B5 here. It's a fairly nice day out today, and been a good day for me so far. Went out to the garden, grabbed some ripened right on the vine, vine plant, I'm not exactly sure the technical name for the type of plant is, but ripened right off the vine strawberries. And if you've never grown your own strawberries, I'm going to tell you right now, you just don't know the difference. If all you've ever had have been store-bought strawberries, then what you've been getting are thick-walled, thick-skinned, fairly bland fruit, or berries, or, edibles. When you grow your own, you really find out the difference of that fruit that has been grown all the way to ripeness, and you've picked it just as the entireness of it is just that succulent red, where the skin is just tissue paper thin. Just sweet, and the flavor just bursts in your mouth. It's a wonderful experience. But anyway, so like I said, today started off pretty well. What I'm doing now is I'm actually headed out to take care of some chores. And I thought I would share with you some thoughts and expand a little bit upon about a Google Plus Hangouts that we had last night. I have to thank the Global Atheism. He hosted this hangout. It went fairly well. It took a while. G-Man showed up. There were some other speakers there. I really, off the top of my head, I can't remember everyone's name. I'm going off memory here, obviously. I'm not reading notes while I drive. Yeah, we had discussions, and at one point, there was this little bit of a back and forth, and I wanted to say something, and I said it in the hangout, but it was right at the tail end. G-Man had already left, so I want to put it here in case he ever wanders upon this video, in that at the beginning, when he first entered the room, one of the things that came up was some brouhaha that had gone on about a video he made about a fake deconversion, and he had these justifications and these reasons for doing it, and really, I don't know the whole story behind it, and I don't need to for what I'm going to say. G-Man acknowledged that one of his justifications on it was he was attempting to go at this from the avenue of what he perceived to be the no true Scotsman fallacy. That was almost central to one of his ideas of why he was doing this. And he acknowledged that he had a misunderstanding of what that fallacy actually was. And so it pretty much invalidated a lot of what he was trying to do. But he acknowledged that he didn't understand it, he had misunderstood it, and then now that he understood it, it really, he needed to stop what he was doing. I feel that people should acknowledge that. I think people should say it was an admirable trait to recognize he was going on a certain course that was mistaken, and that once he identified that, once it was identified to him and he understood how it was wrong, he changed his course. And I think too often in some of these discussions between atheists and theists, one side or the other will have a misunderstanding of something, and then they just gloss over it and move on, and no one ever speaks of it. I think it should be brought up when people demonstrate an intellectual honesty. We're quick to point out when people are being intellectually dishonest. I don't think we're so quick to give people the acknowledgement for when they've done something, which we don't have to do all the time, because we're all wrong at times about something. And that's okay. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, and that probably took longer than it needed to, but hey, it's my video. What I'd like to talk about, though, is about the Google Plus Hangout. At one point, G-Man was attempting to provide some kind of argument, and he was doing this piecewise, which means, he was building upon one part to get to the next part, which, that's how most arguments work anyways. But he started off with this idea about people believing in God. And then he said, let's not even just do everyone. How about we'll just do Christians without getting into who a Christian is, because that had come up earlier in the hangout. But, so why do Christians believe? And that if we didn't want to answer that, why does he believe? Well, first of all, it's really a malformed question, in that there is no way for me to ever say why he in particular believes, because first of all, I can actually never know if he believes. All I can ever know is whether or not he has claimed to believe. It came up earlier in the conversation about faith healers, and that G-Man himself acknowledged some of these people do it purely for money. They do it to get money out of people. Okay? They're dishonest, they're charlatans. we both agree on that. Some of these people obviously are. Yet, they don't go around saying that. They go around saying they believe. We conclude they don't actually believe. But can we know that? I'd say we know it to a certain degree of certainty. Which, I know that sounds odd. So when G-Man says, why does he believe? There's really no way for me to answer that, because first of all, I have to presume he even does believe. And no, I'm not saying G-Man doesn't believe, so no one gets a straw man that. And G-Man, if you're listening, that's not what I said. I said there is no way for me to know whether or not you actually do to a certainty of 100%. Now, what I did in the video, and I've got a link below in the description, hopefully it'll take you right to the timestamp of this particular exchange. Oh, so why do all these people believe? And I got into this general notion that we have a well-documented experience that human beings ascribe agency to acts. Right? I shouldn't even say acts, because acts implies an actor. To events that occur. And we ascribe to those some agency behind that event occurring. That will say, lightning was because a god was mad. A mudslide was because the juju of the mountain or the river goddess sent extra rains because she was sad or because she was angry. And we do this all the time, and we see this in children. And we see children tend to grow out of it as they gain more knowledge, but as adults we still do it. And the other thing is that we know people don't like being left with uncertainty. That if given the opportunity to have no explanation for something, or a proposed explanation of something, human beings will quite often grab onto that proposed explanation regardless of any evidence for it or not. So if we go back and we look at religion, why do all these people believe? Because they are predisposed to believe. Now, G-Man would say, I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but I don't think it's a bridge too far to say that he would say some of these people believe because we are predisposed to believe because it's true that there's a God. Well, it's pretty circular though. You know, why do people believe in God? Because they're predisposed to have a belief in an intelligence agency, and they're predisposed to have a belief in an intelligence agency because there's a God. It's really circular. In the other viewpoint of why do people believe? Well, because they want to ascribe agency, and we see this in this, and we see this in this, and we see this in people believing this kind of God, and people believe in this completely different type of God. And then people believe in the agency of inanimate objects as their children. So what's the simpler explanation? That people are uncomfortable with uncertainty, and people do ascribe agency to things, therefore they will ascribe agency in order to explain those faults or those gaps in their knowledge, that they will use God to fill those gaps. And some of these explanations are going to get compounded, and they become very long and very deep. And Neil deGrasse Tyson did a video on this, and he talked about where Newton was describing the motion of the moon around the earth, and the earth around the sun, and the planets, the individual planets around the sun, and he could do this. He could do this elegantly. Here's the mathematics, and he didn't have to invoke any kind of God to do that. But then he had to describe the three-body problem, and it went past where his mathematics could explain. At that point, he invoked his God, his deity, which is a different one than G-Man's. That's where he brought in his God, where he could no longer explain something. He said, essentially, God did it, because God wills it. It was a God of the gaps. If he was to try and say that proved God, he wasn't saying that proved God, he was just saying that it was God's domain at that point. He couldn't explain, therefore God. And in some ways, G-Man then wanted to shift the goalposts, though, because he asked, why do people believe? And I answered that for him. Now, that was a proposed reason why. In order to invalidate his idea that, well, it must be because of a God, all I have to do is enter in one proposal that is viable, in which his idea is no longer the only one. And it means, it's kind of like the free will defense. Whether or not you agree with it or not, the general premise being that it solves the problem of evil by providing a possible explanation. Same thing. How do we get around all these people believing? Because people believe in things that aren't true all the time. That's it. Now, G-Man then tried to shift the goalposts and said that, no, he was asking about why does he believe? And I tried to tell him that really that's a separate and distinct question. And it is a separate and distinct question. Because we move from a possible reason why a group of people may believe something to the individual reason why one individual definitely believes something. That is a distinct question. And really, there's no way to answer that without in-depth guiding with him and going over his beliefs and what founds his beliefs and where do they come from. But just spelling out evidence evidence does not demonstrate his belief is actually justified to a degree that other people would agree demonstrates it. So anyways, this was kind of a long video to talk about a very short thing. I hope you go and watch the Google Hangout. We had fun before he showed up, and I think we had fun while he was there, and we had fun after he left. Times gets a little heated, it's to be expected. You've got theists and atheists talking. I would say overall, I think it went fairly well. I think those of us who are atheists, I think we, in most regard, to the greater degree, attempted to give G-Man the opportunity to speak without talking over him. I think we tried to do it in fairness, since we understand, I believe he was the only Christian apologist in the room. And it just would have been fair to beat him up, 6 or 7 on 1 with continual hammering. So I think we tried to do that. I hope he would agree that it seemed to be fair, that we seemed to be fair about it. But anyways, I've got to get in here and get to work. I hope you all have a wonderful day out there, and I will talk to you later. And like I said, I should put the link below for the actual Hangout. So, or not the Hangout, but the video of it. So, have a good day.